welcome to my library. My name is Melissa, and today I am wrapping up all the books I read in January. I read a ton of historical romances in January, and one giant tome that I have been meaning to read for years and years and years, and so I'm so glad I finally got to it. I also thought that for the first time, I would try to do my wrap-ups by rating. So I'd go start with my 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, just to see if that's a better way to do it. You guys will have to let me know whether you prefer chronologically or by rating. But yeah, I read 6 books this month, which is really, really good for me. I typically range from like 3 to 6 books a month. I don't know if I've ever read more than 6 books in a month. So yeah, that was exciting for me to read that many. 3 of them were via audio and 3 of them were physical. I had 2 3-star reads, 1 3.5-star read, 2 4-star reads, and 1 5-star read. So yeah, let's just get started. The dogs are really rowdy, so I hope that they'll calm down while I talk. But I apologize if you hear them kind of playing in the background. They're playing tug of war, so it might be kind of loud. The first 3-star read that I'll talk about is actually the most recent book I read, and I read it via audio. It's Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. MacLean, I'm sorry, I always feel like I'm saying her last name wrong, so it might be MacLean even. I don't know. Anyways, so this is the second book in the Bare Knuckle Bastards series. I read Wicked and the Wallflower in November or December, can't remember when. But I really enjoyed that one. I gave that one 4 stars. So I like that one better than the second book actually, which I think is a somewhat unpopular opinion. I know a ton of people, here's butter. I know a ton of people that absolutely love this book. It's their favorite book of the series. It's their favorite Sarah MacLean. It's their favorite book ever. Like, I've seen it hyped so much. So I had very high expectations. I still liked the book, but I just didn't love it as much as other people did. I don't know why. I mean, I'll tell you why. So the reasons why I didn't love this book as much is that the basic premise of the book is it's about this woman named Hattie who decides that this is going to be the year of Hattie. And she is going to basically take her life in her own hands. She's a spinster at this point. I think she's like 28 or something. She has like 4 or 5 different like things that she's going to accomplish in the year. And one of them being that she wants to end up running her father's business, her father's shipping business. It's currently like kind of bestowed to her brother because he's a man. And so she's like, no, I'm going to prove to him that I deserve it. And so another thing that she wants is she wants to completely be free of like the expectations of getting married. So she's going to basically lose her virginity. And so she ends up meeting Whit, the main hero in the book, via a very exciting way. I actually loved how they met. It's so funny. And anyways, he ends up being literally like instant love at first sight with her. She's plus size, so that's fun. I loved reading about that. Honestly, the way Whit loves Hattie and like adores and lusts after her is really, really special. So anyways, yeah, so he's the one that wants to be the person who she loses her virginity to. So yeah, that's kind of the basic premise. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially with the Bare Knuckle Bastards business, and they run a business in the slums of London, and so he ends up kind of helping her with her business / being like a partner in it. So that was interesting as well. But the reason that I didn't love it is I thought that the plot was a little bit contrived. I can suspend my disbelief up to a certain point, but then it just kind of pushed it past that point for me where I was like, this is kind of crazy. I also felt like Whit was a little bit of like he lusts so much after Hattie, but I wasn't getting the love. Like I kept waiting. he adores her body, but I was like, I really want to see more from him to show me that like he loves Hattie for who she is as well. I just wasn't getting it as much from him. So yeah, that kind of let it down for me as well. There's a miscommunication trope in this that I also was like kind of rolling my eyes about. I don't love the miscommunication trope, and so it was just a lot for me. But I still gave it 3 stars. I still really liked it. I know I'm gonna try to finish the series this year and read the 3rd one that is kind of a redeemed villain trope from what I understand. And I think that one is gonna be great. The next one I read that was 3 stars is On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. I vlogged most of my experience reading this book, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this is the 8th and last book in the Bridgerton series. This one follows Gregory's story, and it's Gregory and Hattie, or not Hattie, oh my gosh. It's Gregory and Lucy's story. The basic premise of this is that he falls in love with Lucy's best friend at the very beginning of the book, and he's kind of like this hopeless romantic because he's seen all of his siblings fall in love and have true love partners. And so he thinks that her best friend is his true love. And then as the story progresses, he realizes he actually loves Lucy. Then he starts to pursue Lucy. Anyways, that's the plot. And that's kind of why I ended up giving it a 3 star, was I was really struggling believing that he ended up loving Lucy. Like, I was just really, really wanting him to switch his mindset already, and it kept going, and I really wanted their love story to be more prevalent in the book. The ending was crazy though. Like, I did not expect what happens at the end of this book, and it was really fun and engaging, and that's what brought it up for me, quite honestly. So yeah, I ended up giving this a 3 stars. And I'm so glad I'm done with the Bridgertons. I can't believe that I ended up reading this book basically over a span of a year, or the series. Yeah, I read this series over the span of a year and loved it. Number 7, It's in His Kiss, is my favorite. I won't go through my rankings of all of them, but yeah, number 7 was my favorite, closely followed by number 6 actually. So yeah, loved my experience reading these books. Now let's talk about the 3.5 star read I had. This was also in the Historical Romance Readathon. And that was One War Blue by Heather Graham. I'll show the step back because literally this step back is so amazing. I love it. So this follows a Southern woman named Kiernan and also a Southern man whose name is Jesse, who ends up actually switching over to the Union side in the war just based on his morals, I guess. And so they're on opposite sides, and she's basically never going to forgive him for being a traitor to her cause, essentially. They grew up together. He's known her for forever. He's actually 10 years older than her, and he's a doctor, so he's a doctor in the army. But yeah, so it's basically, he comes back to her during the war to basically save her house from being burned down, and turns it over to being a hospital. But then actually 2/3 of this book is in the past, before the Civil War even starts. And it's their kind of broody relationship, the political happenings that build up to the Civil War. And I buddy read this with Shay from Shay Geeks Out. It was our first buddy read together, and I so enjoyed my time reading this with her. We had the same feeling about it, where we thought the pacing was just really off in this book. And then also the heroine in this book, Kiernan, was a lot to handle. She was so stubborn and so unforgiving and like just really ignorant, I guess. She just didn't seem like a heroine that I really wanted to root for. I really loved Jesse though. And then the dynamic between Jesse and his brother Daniel was prime. Like, I'm so excited for the next book that follows Daniel's story, because I loved Daniel in this book. It shows a lot of him in this book, which I also think was so fun because it makes you want to keep reading in the series, because it's kind of like this whole world that's being built in this book. That's my thoughts. So now to my 4-star reads. I'll talk about the 4-star read historical romance that I read, also by Julia Quinn. This is Mr. Cavendish, I presume. So this is the first, you can change the first and the second book. They're a duology of this series. It happens in the same timeline, so it really doesn't matter which one you start with. But this was actually the second book in the series that I read. So I read The Lost Duke of Wyndham, and then I read this book. And I love this book more than that book, which is an unpopular opinion in our book club. So yeah, I'm part of the Rake Appreciation Society book club, and this was those two books were the pick for January. I loved this book because it had a trope that I don't see a ton of, and I just love it when it happens, which is a predestined betrothed engagement that ends up, they both end up hating the fact that they're engaged to each other from birth, essentially, but then they end up falling in love. And so it was just so fun to read about. I also really loved Thomas in this book, this hero. He was just so loving of Amelia, and he also made friends with Jack, who is the unknown potential Duke of Wyndham. He is the original Duke, and then it's kind of taken away from him in question of whether he or Jack should be Duke. So that's the whole premise of this duology. And anyways, yeah, I really, really loved this story, and this duology was so fun to read in January. I'm so glad I did it. And yeah, this was a 4-star read from Julia Quinn, so that was really fun. I'm reading a ton of her this year. I'm actually reading Just Like Heaven currently and really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm just binging Julia Quinn this year and loving life. So you guys, now a shift from historical romance. I have one more historical to talk about, but that one's my 5-star. So this is my next 4-star read that isn't historical. And that is Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. Yay, I did it. I read this book. And it has seen better days, you guys. It got bent in my suitcase. I paced myself, and I actually didn't end up finishing this book until like the 29th of January. But yeah, I read this on my Buddy Reads Discord. I have a link always in my description for that Discord. Basically, it's the top 12 books I want to read in 2021, and each month we read a different book. And so for January, it was this one. I really enjoyed it. So the things that I loved about this book were, I loved the plot. It was so engaging and so interesting. I haven't read a ton of medieval fiction, and so to read about all of the things that go on in the medieval times, I am just so glad I was not born during that time period. It is rough, especially for women. Honestly, major trigger warnings for rape in this book. I was reading on some of my friends' reviews and some other people I follow on Goodreads for this book, and I actually really loved, if you guys know who Emily May is on Goodreads, I really love her reviews, and she typically has the opinion that I do on books. So her review, I'll leave it down below because everything she says for this book is how I felt about it. But she does leave a major trigger warning for rape. It happens 3 or 4 times in this book, and it's quite graphic. So just know that. But this basically follows a couple of different characters who, one of them is Prior Philip, who is trying desperately to build this cathedral for his priory, which is called Kingsbridge. And so basically he has to kind of make some like deals and he has to deal with people who are trying to move up in political power to basically get the supplies, get the money he needs to build this cathedral. The other thing that happens in this book is there's a builder named Tom who ends up being the master builder for this cathedral. It's his family as well. His love interest in the book's son is named Jack, who I loved Jack. Oh my gosh, he was my favorite character in this book. He's this kind of redhead, awkward kid who ends up being an amazing stone cutter, like stone carver. And he ends up falling in love with a earl's daughter named Aliena. Aliena, I think is how you say it. But Aliena's life is stripped away from her when her castle is overrun by William. And it's safe to say that everyone who was reading this book with me on Discord, literally all of us hated William so much. And he is literally the worst. I don't know if I've ever hated a villain as much as him. But anyways, okay, so those are kind of all the different plot lines, characters going on in this book. The other things I loved about this book were I really loved the description of architecture and the process of building this cathedral, actually. I thought it was so fascinating. And I loved the romance between Jack and Eliana. It was adorable. It was heartbreaking at times. And it's very star-crossed lovers situation where they're torn apart by various things happening around them, to them. And so anyways, that's what kept me going in reading this book, was wanting to know more about their romance. But the things that I didn't love and that brought it down a star for me were, I thought it was too long. The last third of this book kind of dragged for me. I was like, okay, things have already kind of wrapped up for a lot of these characters, so why does this story keep going? And then the other thing I didn't love about this was Ken Follett's writing, for some reason, just doesn't click with me. I've actually read Fall of Giants, which is his World War II epic series. It's the first book in this series. And I also felt the same about that book. And so when I picked up this book and started reading, I was like reminded of my experience reading that book and my feelings about his writing. It's very simple, and I think that's how maybe most people like his books, is that it's kind of simple. It's very tell, not show, is how I would describe his writing for me. I'm intrigued to read another one of his books, the second one probably in this series at some point in my life, but it probably won't be for a while just because it wasn't my favorite. So yeah, but I still ended up giving this a 4-star. I totally understand why people loved it. I had people in my Discord who gave it a 5-star, 4-star. Actually, one person DNF'd it, which is totally understandable. But yeah, if you guys are intrigued by a very, very politically driven medieval story, this is your pick. My last book and final, my only 5-star read of January is this baby. Oh my gosh, Morning Glory by LaVryle Spencer. LaVryle? I think someone told me that it's LaVryle Spencer. Oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to say that. I literally tongue twisted. LaVryle Spencer? Here's the step back. I love it so much. And this honestly encaptures what this book is. It is such an endearing, heartwarming story about this woman who she's a single mom and she's struggling trying to keep up house, watch her kids, etc. She lives on this farmhouse in pre-World War II, 1941, I think is when it starts. Anyways, she puts an ad in the paper saying, wanted a husband. I just need someone to help me out with my house and I'll give you free food, essentially. And so Will Parker, the hero in this book, shows up to her house and says, hey, I'm answering the ad. One thing you should know about me is I've been to prison. I was in prison for 5 years for allegedly killing this woman in Texas. You end up learning about both of these characters' past. The main heroine in this story, Ellie, has actually had a very, very dramatic past as well. She was born a love child to a very religious home. And so this home basically treats her, her grandparents essentially treat her as this disgraced child who should never see the light of day. So she's just locked up in this house for years and years as a kid. And then finally the authorities come and say, hey, we know you have a kid in here and you need to send them to school under government mandate. So she's kind of socially awkward and she's always rejected by the town. So she never steps foot in the town. And then Will ends up helping her come to terms with that and realizing that she is capable of love and deserving of love. And the same for him as well. He's never seen love in his life. He's seen horrible things. He's been through horrible things. And Ellie helps him realize that he's also deserving of love. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. And the writing in this, that's what convinced me. That's what really hit the fact that this is a 5-star read, was that the writing was so beautiful. I highlighted so much in this book. I can just go through the pages and see highlights all over the place. I also ended up watching the TV show for this book. It's actually a movie and it stars Christopher Reeve and it's a 1993, I think it's a TV movie, honestly. I don't think it came out in theaters, but it was really pretty good, it follows the plot. However, it just didn't capture the magic that this book is. So yeah, I would highly recommend reading the book over the movie. But I ended up also reading this as part of my Buddy Reads Discord. This is the first book that I ended up finishing as part of my top 12 books I need to read. So I was so happy that I ended up giving it 5 stars. It was just an amazing experience. All of us ended up really enjoying this book as well. So yeah, if that goes to show you guys, I'm picking great books here to read this year if you guys wanted to join in. Yeah, I'm just loving my time on my Discord, honestly. It's been so fun to engage with my subscribers and just talk to you guys, you know? It's just such an easy way to communicate. So I love it. But yeah, you guys, that is all of the books I ended up reading in January. Here's the 5 besides Brazen and the Beast. If you would like, please like and comment. I reply to every single comment. And please subscribe if you want to see more from me. And I will see you guys in another video. Bye!